So I'm doing this one because a few new people that I've put that have started with us have asked the question about doing cardio. Because obviously the vast majority of the group do have some kind of fat loss goal as part of what they want to do. And pretty much everyone's training programs is based around weight training, which there's a good reason for that, which we'll go into. But a lot of people have asked, like, when do I do cardio? Is there any point in doing cardio? Um, so that's what I want to cover today is the role of cardio, different types of cardio, why you would want to use it, when you would want to use it, um, and when it's going to be beneficial for you. So you can kind of make your own decisions based on that. But what you'll learn is there is a bit of give and take if you decide that you do want to include cardio in your program as well. So the big question is, like, why would you have cardio in? The big misconception the world over is cardio burns fat. And no, it doesn't. It can help, but what burns fat is being in a negative energy balance. And that's exactly what we try and achieve by measuring and giving you understanding your daily activity level and then managing that with the calorie and macro goal that we give you alongside that. So cardio is just a tool. It's nothing special. It's nothing different to anything else. It is just an additional tool to help burn some extra calories. But you do not have to do cardio. You do not have to be sweating like a dog at the end of a session. That's that's just that's just not what it's about. Um, so we'll go into it. So, as I said, fat loss isn't caused by cardio, it's caused by a calorie deficit, so a negative energy balance. Any other method that anyone talks about, whether it's intermittent fasting, the use of injections, low carb, high carb, um, any kind of method like that, there's no great secret to why it works. The reason it works is because whatever method you're using puts you in a calorie deficit, and that's it. There is no other thing. Um, Obviously, if you're using injections or if you're doing intermittent fasting, they help because they are basically stopping you from eating more calories at different times. You're either pulling your hunger back so you don't want to eat, or you're reducing the window that you would eat food that lowers your calories anyway. That's essentially the only way it works. Um, the two key variables that you have to play with are calories in and calories out. So the food you consume and the amount of activity level that you do on the other side. So you've basically got goalposts at either side. If you want your activity level to increase, then to keep that deficit in the same place, you can move your calories in the same direction. If it happens the other way and you want to do less activity and you bring it in, then this one has to move. You can't move one without the other one moving. If you move one of them and not the other, you either go into a really aggressive deficit or you don't have enough and then fat loss stalls. Does that make sense? And which is usually the reason why fat loss stalls is because you've changed one of the variables without realizing, and it's brought your deficit from where it should be down to a very small margin. Um, that is something that you can manipulate yourself if you want to allow yourself extra calories. So if you like eating more food and you want to eat more food, then the answer to that is you need, yes, Phil, yeah. Then you need to increase your activity level, and that is potentially when you bring cardio in. So it's not magic, it is just a tool. It can either increase the number of calories that you burn to increase your deficit to make fat loss happen even quicker, or it allows you to eat more food. It basically just all it does is shift the goalposts. That's the real way you've got to think about this. Is you've got two goalposts. One of them is food, one of them is activity. You move one, you move the other, and that's all there is to it. Um, So different types of cardio. You've got low intensity, steady state cardio. This is your walk on a treadmill at a faster pace or on an incline, swimming, cycling, on the elliptical, cross trainer, all of this kind of stuff. Um, it's it elevates your heart rate to a point where it is going to have cardiovascular benefits. So it is going to increase your cardiovascular capacity and work rate and the strength of your heart. But it's not going to be to a level that low intensity anyway. It's not going to be to a level that causes any great fatigue. You should still be able to hold a conversation doing it. So what this is good for, this is particularly good for increasing your calorie expenditure if you want it. It still boosts your aerobic capacity and it can have benefits of improving recovery between sessions. And it's also very, very easy to manage the amount of fatigue doing this. High intensity, which is what a lot of people might want to do. The reason why it's usually associated with interval training is at a high intensity, i.e. 80, 90% of your maximum heart rate, you cannot keep that going for long periods of time, which is why it's always intervals. This is really good. Like all ranges of cardio will improve your cardio capacity, but the stuff at the top end for high intensity, that's really aimed at performance. If you really want to improve your cardiovascular ability for performance, such as for running or any kind of sport and weight training, but I'll come on to that because it does kind of have knock-on benefits for that as well. Then you want to start doing high intensity stuff. You've heard of VO2 max. This is a common fitness test, and it's about your body's ability to of how efficiently it uses oxygen as a fuel source. High intensity cardio is really, really fatiguing. You come out of a hit session absolutely done in. And it's not it's your muscles, but it's also your central nervous system as well. So if you think of things like circuit training, high rocks, CrossFit, all of those kinds of things, which you would class as really high intensity. Yes, they'll burn a lot of calories, but they're going to leave you absolutely hammered by the end. The chances are that after one of those sessions, your ability to burn more calories throughout the day becomes limited because of how tired you are. And you're going to be less mobile and less active through the day because of that heavy bout of exercise. Which is why the fatigue thing comes into play. If you think about when you're on a diet and you're on less calories, well, regardless of whether you're on less calories or high calories, you have a recovery bucket. You have an amount of recovery capability that your body has from session to session to help you recover from any work that you do. You only have so much of that. If you start digging in further into that, you're not going to be able to recover. So if you're doing 3 weight training sessions or 4 weight training sessions and you start adding high intensity cardio and you're on a calorie deficit, you are really going to be so fatigued that you're not going to recover from session to session. And that is going to affect, yes, you might burn a lot of calories in that session. You are going to be so tired that you're either your activity level is going to decrease throughout the week because you just don't have the energy to do it, or you're going to want to replace all of that fatigue with extra food. If you go out for a walk for an hour and you come back home, you don't feel the need to raid the cupboards or have a big meal. But remember the last time you did a 1 hour really, really tough session like that, and you feel as soon as you come out you need something. So bear that in mind as well. Big thing about your nervous system as well. That's worth pointing out here. Muscles recover pretty quickly. Muscles generally recover within 48 hours. They might feel sore for a little bit afterwards, but generally, muscles can recover within 4, which is why you can hit a muscle group 2 or 3 times a week, no problem. As your muscles recover quickly, your central nervous system doesn't. So the fatigue that you accumulate through your central nervous system keeps adding on and adding on and adding on and adding on, week after week. And if you keep adding to that, that's where you get to a point where you overtrain and you need to take time off. Which, Laura, that was why we had that conversation last week about it wasn't anything to do with your training. It was the fact that your work was so busy and you were burning the candle at both ends almost. So if you keep up that level of fatigue, like, you are going to burn out, and it's not your muscles, it's your central nervous system that's just being absolutely fried and not being able to do anything. So that's why because you're in that situation, that's why we pulled your training back and pulled the volume back. Make sense so far? Any questions? Then in the middle, you've got moderate intensity cardio, which is kind of heart rate in between the top end, so around about 70 to 80%. This is like jogging or rowing or something. It's not the top end of being intense, but it's more than low intensity steady state. So the big question is, when would you add cardio? I certainly wouldn't add it before a weight training session, because the whole point of any weight training session is performance. So you want to get the most you possibly can out of that session. Do your cardio afterwards if you want to do it. There's no point going in and doing 20, 30 minutes on a treadmill before you do weights, because you've just depleted a load of glycogen that could have been used for getting better lifts or better performance in the gym. By the time you've finished your session and your glycogen stores are kind of on their way to being slowly starting to deplete, then it's actually a good idea to spend 20, 30 minutes on a treadmill, because it's a low enough intensity that your body will it will be able to burn fat at that point, as opposed to doing really high intensity stuff, which is it's too for fat burning, because your body's energy needs is so high it can't get it quick enough by metabolizing fat. It'll have to metabolize glycogen, and if it runs out of glycogen, your muscles are next. Okay. Um, so low intensity cardio is really good for extending your calorie expenditure, but again, either do it after a weight training session or do it on a rest day where you're not going to eat in your recovery too much. High intensity cardio, I wouldn't do that too often. 1 to 2 sessions a week max. But if you've got to use it specifically around what your goals are. If your goals are you're doing this for performance, then you want to be adding some of this in, because it is going to improve your performance. So from a weight training or bodybuilding perspective, when you might want to add high intensity cardio in, is to improve your capacity for doing high volume work, and especially work on your legs. Like, you notice how many times you train legs, you'll gas out before your muscles give up. You'll just run out of air, and you'll run out of breathing. Jordan, back me up on this one.
100%. Like,
Everyone will gas out.
especially when you hit high weight and the higher reps, you're done in before then. Sometimes you need a break and then go back in.
Yeah, because you, like I say, leg press, squats, deadlifts, you will gas out before your legs give up. If you want to improve your capacity for doing that, then adding high intensity cardio sessions into your week is not a bad idea. But you've then got to manage that with how much that's going to eat into. And it's a fine balance between, do I want to keep it for with training sessions, or do I want to add this in as well? If you're going to add something like this in, definitely do it on a day when you're resting. But then also think, But if your goal is to strip fat, maybe that's not the thing that you want to be doing because you are going to fatigue yourself too much. And the amount of calories that you burn for the fatigue, the calories burn to fatigue ratio isn't good enough. Which is what we're going to come on to as the perfect setup. So raise your hand if you know what NEAT is. Aye, of course you do, Jordan. NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So basically, NEAT refers to the calories you burn just from moving, just from fidgeting, just from being alive and not being lying down in bed doing nothing. So popping your fingers on the desk, getting up and down from the sofa, doing the washing up, ironing, climbing up and down the stairs, going to the toilet, going in and out the washing basket, or just small physical movements that actually use up energy. If you know people that constantly can't, like, they're just fidgeting all the time, or even when they're not fidgeting, they can't sit down for 2 minutes, they're normally they're normally quite thin people. You don't see many overweight people who are just constantly moving all the time. They tend to be the ones that don't move very often. If you're someone who wears a calorie counter like a Fitbit or a Samsung watch or a Garmin or anything else, if you measure how many calories it estimates that you're burning on a day that you're sat on your laptop at work, and you compare that to a busy Saturday with the kids where you're constantly on your feet moving around, the calorie difference, even if it's estimated, even if the way it's measured is wrong, that estimation compared to an estimation of when you sat in your office, the difference can be 1,000 calories a day just from small movements. You do not have to be doing high fatiguing bouts of exercise to be burning loads of calories. In fact, you will burn more calories per day just by being slightly more active than you would doing any cardio session. So this is why you need to understand why NEAT is so important. It also includes walking. Now, some people might, and this is where it crosses the line a bit, some people might say that, well, if you plan to go for a walk, that's a planned bout of exercise. Well, yeah, it is and it isn't. If we go back to low intensity cardio, it was anything above 60% of your max heart rate. Anything that's considered NEAT would be under that. So even if you go out for a walk for an hour, the steps that you're doing on a casual walk in the woods is exactly the same as the steps that you would be doing in your house. And this is why we measure step count. This is why on everyone's plan, when I measure how many weight training sessions you're doing, and we set a step target goal, that's the reason we set a step target goal, because this is basically assigning you a particular level of NEAT activity. And that gives me a better idea of what your daily calorie burn is likely to be like. And because I've set that at a certain limit, that helps me to estimate what your daily calorie intake needs to be. Does that make sense? So when you look back at the recommendations I've given you for MyFitnessPal, and I might have one person on 2,200 calories and one person on 1,800 or someone else on 2,600, the things I've considered are how many sessions you're doing, what your body mass is, how old you are, and how many steps a day you're taking. This is why everything's tracked. This is why we measure all the data. And this is why I'll look at your steps every week. So when I do your check-ins, I'm looking at what's your calorie average been like through the week compared to what I've given you, and what is your step average across the week. Now, if your weight loss stalls and you've missed a couple of gym sessions and your average daily step count has gone from 10,000 to 4,000, that's why you haven't lost weight. It's not because the diet's not working. It's not because the training's not working. It's because the activity level that you were supposed to be doing doesn't now correlate. You remember the goalposts? one goalpost just moved that way and made your calorie deficit really small. That's why you haven't lost weight. Not that anyone in here has done that. But if but what you've got to understand about that is if this one's moving because your step count is not consistent, this one needs to move to keep fat loss moving. So if your step count goes down, your food needs to go down, which is what's happened to me the past few weeks. I've had to cut my calories to 2,000 or less, which is really low for me, and I don't like that. I would rather have my food back. So I've now told myself, right, I've got to get up early in the morning, do some work, so I can pull another hour from somewhere and go for a walk because I don't want to pull my peanut butter out of me dessert on the night just for the sake of not being able to get my steps. I'd rather go out for a walk than give up my peanut butter. So how do you increase your level of NEAT? Again, set a daily step count goal. Um, Phil, I think it was you, was it in your check-in that said about parking further away from work and walking? Like perfect examples. Anytime you can get extra steps in just for no reason. Like I took Logan to football last night, and because he wasn't paying attention to me because he was playing with the lads, I just went for a walk for an hour and then came back and picked him up. There's my steps done for the day, or a good chunk of them. Um, Lindsay, she's not in the call, but she's another one of my clients. She doesn't go to the gym at all. Like she's too busy. She's got three kids. She's a financial director. She works 12, 14 hour um days. She just hasn't got time to do this stuff. But she'll switch off from her laptop every hour and do some jogging on the spot in the house. Or she'll run around the kitchen, like while she's making a cup of tea, she'll go and like just run up and down the stairs or do little things like that. And it's that bit of activity that's keeping our fat loss going. Going for short walks after meals. Um, but this is why it's really, really useful to have some kind of tracker that's measuring your steps. Like out of any mode of exercise you can do to burn fat, steps 100% beat anything. So let that sink in. Walking is the best exercise you can do to maintain a calorie deficit to lose weight above all else, hands down. And that is because it's so easy to do and there is so little fatigue from it. You don't come back from a walk fatigued, but you'll come back from this is why you get all these people in gyms who go and do all the high rocks classes. This isn't me bad mouthing high rocks, but they'll go and do it just because they want to do classes and they'll think, oh, I've worked up a sweat, brilliant. And then they're so knackered after they come home, they're like, right, should we go and have a coffee? Should we go and have a cake? I've earned it. Like, you haven't earned it. You've put everything back out. Not only have you put all your calories back, you're now so tired that you're not going to move for the rest of the day. And then they put weight on, but they don't understand why they put weight on because they're saying, "But I eat really healthy and I've been doing high rocks 3 times a week." Do you see the cycle that's going on? Again, that's not a dig at high rocks. Well, yeah, a little bit it is. But yeah. So um, the bottom line is cardio and NEAT are just tools. You do not need to do cardio, but it can be effective if you need to do it. If you need to add something in extra that is going to help put your deficit in the right place to allow you to continue losing fat, then cardio is a good tool to use. But you do not need cardio to lose fat. And hopefully, what I've explained there does make sense. If you do want to add some in, let me know. We'll have the conversation around it because it may be that if you are going to add these extra things in, we may need to adjust your calorie intake and bring it up slightly. Okay. Um, and also just bear in mind that the more you do, the more it's going to cause fatigue and the more that it's going to eat into your ability to recover because your body can only do so much and it's only got so many calories, especially if you're in a deficit, in order to help your muscles recover. And if you're taking that away, by going out for extra runs, which Phil, I know like you love your running as well. But just bear that in mind. It is going to have an impact. But if you want to offset that impact, it may be that you need more calories, or you may need to scale back your training slightly. Laura's like, no chance.
Phil, would the more calories be on that day or overall throughout the week?
It's up to you. As long as everything balances throughout the week, and I say this quite a lot, what I look at is your calorie average throughout the week. So I'll see what you've got on a day-to-day basis, but what I'm looking for is, have you averaged out throughout the week where you should be? As long as the average, as long as the net input and output matches what it should be across the week, it doesn't really matter over time. There is a caveat to that though. I think I explained this in the last call, Laura, was the thing about when you start on a diet, all your energy levels are full, everything's saturated. As you start to dig into the diet, the first few days your body manages fine. Doesn't need to lose fat because it's basically running down what it's already got. Then it'll get to a point where it's like, right, okay, we're running short of fuel now. We'll need to start using reserves, and that's when the fat burning starts. So yes, you can have little ebbs and flows of increases and decreases and allowing yourself a little bit extra here and a little bit lower there. If you overdo that and you have a cheat day or you have a high maintenance day or if you have a really bad weekend, over time, yeah, it's not going to be that big a problem. But what it does do is it refills all your stores. So for the next few days after that, your body doesn't need to burn fat because you've just refilled everything. It's now in a state where I can continue fine for the next 2 or 3 days. I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to run down your stores again until it gets to the point where I have to switch to burn fat from stored areas. Does that make sense? So it's a balancing act. Yes, you can do it. Yes, it can work. Yes, it's good. But the best thing you can do for fat loss is pick something that you know you're going to do consistently, which is not going to affect you in any other ways, either by causing too much fatigue or stopping your recovery from your other training sessions. The reason why weight training is the primary activity is as you go into a deficit and you lose weight, you're losing body mass. If you think of yourself as just a mass, that has to get smaller. If what you feed it is less than what it needs, it has to get smaller. It can't get bigger. You're giving it less than it's using. It has to reduce in size, and that'll be fat, muscle, everything. The reason you do weight training alongside dieting is to stimulate the muscles to keep them growing. Is to stimulate that response for them to say, right, we're not atrophying. We're needing to grow here. We're being stimulated to grow, and that is also why your protein is so high. It's to maintain muscle mass while the rest of your body starts to reduce. Yeah. So, biggest thing to take into consideration: calorie deficit over time is the main driver. That's the only thing that you really need to be worried about. The role of cardio is, yes, it will help you burn extra calories, but you don't need to if your daily activity level and your intake is in the right place anyway. However, you might want to do cardio anyway just for health reasons. Even some low intensity or up in your NEAT or whatever is actually a good thing to do regardless, just for general heart health and everything else. If you're going to do anything for fat loss, low intensity is the way forward. If you've heard people say, yeah, but high intensity cardio has this afterburn which lasts for hours after, I'm sorry, it's a load But yes, it might have it. It does have a slight effect, but not enough to make a big enough difference. The so-called afterburn of doing high intensity cardio is not enough to warrant the fatigue that it causes, if that makes sense. Like, it's just not worthwhile. If you're aiming for performance, if you want improvements in performance for a sport or an endurance event or anything like that, then absolutely fine, go with high intensity. But your secret weapon at the end of the day is neat. It's basically moving more. If you're sat doing nothing and you're conscious that you're sat doing nothing, move around more. I used to, when I was deep into a diet last year, I purposely tried to do more jobs around the house. It would get to 9 o'clock and would bring the washing, the drying in from the dryer, from the garage. And I'd be like, leave them, I'll do it. And I would stand folding it just because this moving my hands and folding clothes from the dryer would probably knock off another 50 to 100 calories after I'd walked backwards towards the garage and upstairs putting them away. Even little things like making the dinner and washing up, like, no, leave it, I'll do it, because all that extra activity was burning more calories. So Phil, if your fat loss stalls, the answer is you need to start doing the washing up more.
I do enough.
Honestly, this past couple of weeks, he's been like, no, don't do the housework. I'll do it all now. I know why.
Yeah.